Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to be talking about the money market. We're looking at the money market. We're looking at how money supply and money demand interact in order to set the nominal interest rate. Remember, if you're comparing nominal interest rates versus real interest rates, nominal rates do not take inflation, deflation, price changes into account. Real rates do take inflation, deflation, and price changes into account. So let's talk about the money market. So the money market is the market where the Fed and the users of money interact, thus determining the nominal interest rate. Remember, we're not looking at the real interest rate here. We're looking at the nominal rate. The Federal Reserve will set nominal rates, and they'll only know the real rate after the fact, after they know inflation. Remember that the real interest rate is equal to the nominal rate minus that inflation rate. Money demand comes from households, firms, governments, and the private and the foreign sector. And the money supply is determined only by the Federal Reserve. So money demand comes from various sources. The first one is transaction demand. This is demand for money as a medium of exchange. This is when people demand money in order to exchange that money for goods and services. This is going to be independent of the interest rate. You also have precautionary demand, where people demand money in case something goes wrong. You'll also have asset demand. This is demand for money as a store of value. So this is going to be very dependent upon the interest rate. You add all those different demands up, and you're going to go ahead and get total money demand. Is downward sloping because at high interest rates, people are less inclined to hold money. They're more inclined to hold stocks and bonds because they can get high interest on them. At lower interest rates, people sacrifice less when they hold money, so therefore they're going to hold more money at lower interest rates. So the money supply is determined by the Federal Reserve because the Fed has monopoly control over that money supply. No entity can increase the money supply besides the Federal Reserve. Notice that the Federal Reserve does not print money. They do expand the money supply. The Treasury, U.S. Treasury, is actually the entity that does actually print money at the Bureau of Printing and Engraving. So the Federal Reserve is going to be in control of the amount of money in circulation. It's going to be in control of increasing and decreasing the money supply. So let's look at our graph for today, which is the money market. So with the money market, you're going to have nominal interest rate on your y-axis. You're going to have the quantity of money on your x-axis. You're going to have money demand, which is going to be downward sloping as you go left to right. You're going to have money supply, which is going to be vertical. And where money demand and money supply intersect, you're going to have an equilibrium nominal interest rate. You're also going to have an equilibrium quantity of money. So the equilibrium of money supply and money demand determines the nominal interest rate. Money demand is downward sloping because the nominal interest rate is the opportunity cost of holding money. So money supply is vertical because it is independent of the interest rate. The Federal Reserve is going to set it. Okay, so at high interest rates, ladies and gentlemen, people are going to want to buy stocks and bonds. They're not going to want to hold money. At low interest rates, they're more likely to want to hold money. So changes in money demand. Let's focus in on money demand here. So money demand is dependent upon both the price level and real GDP, which together comprise nominal GDP. Remember, price level times real GDP is going to be equal to nominal GDP. So if the price level changes, if real GDP changes, that's going to change money demand. So things that change gross domestic product, real gross domestic product, are going to go ahead and change nominal gross domestic product as well. So if nominal GDP goes up, money demand is going to shift to the right, and then you're going to have an increase in nominal interest rates, which you'll see in a moment. If nominal GDP goes down, money demand shifts to the left, and nominal interest rates are going to go down. So let's look at an increase in money demand here. So we have our money supply, money demand intersecting at an equilibrium, nominal interest rate, and quantity of money. When money demand increases, it shifts to the right. You're going to have a new equilibrium. So nominal interest rate went up, and quantity of money did not change because the Federal Reserve has not increased or decreased the money supply. So next, let's look at a decrease in money demand. So once again, you have an equilibrium nominal interest rate, you have an equilibrium quantity of money. So we're going to go ahead and decrease the money demand, shift it to the left here. And you can see there that the nominal interest rate went down, quantity of money stayed the same because the Federal Reserve has not changed the quantity of money. All right, let's look at changes in the money supply. So only the Federal Reserve determines the money supply. An expansionary monetary policy, and we're going to go over that a little bit more in detail at a future date. The money supply is going to increase, it's going to shift to the right, and you'll see that that will push nominal rates down. Contractionary monetary policy, once again, we're going to talk about that at a later time, what really is, contractionary monetary policy entails. And money supply will shift to the left, which will push up nominal interest rates, as you will see. So an increase in the money supply, you have an equilibrium nominal interest rate, you have an equilibrium quantity of money here. Increase in the money supply is going to shift it to the right, from MS to MS1. And you can see there that's going to push down your nominal rate. That's also going to push up the quantity of money because the money supply has increased at this point. All right, let's look at a decrease in the money supply. So once again, we're at an equilibrium nominal rate, quantity of money. Money supply shifts to the left here. So we have a new equilibrium, and that pushed up the nominal rate, and that pushed down the quantity of money. So you can see how manipulating the money supply will change both nominal interest rates, will also change the quantity of money as well. All right, so let's take a look at some assessments, our assessment here. So for number one, we're going to graph and explain what happens to nominal interest rates if there is an increase in nominal GDP. Go ahead and shift either the money demand or the money supply, and then tell me what's going to happen to nominal interest rates at that point. For number two, we're going to graph and explain what would happen to nominal interest rates and the quantity of money if there is a decrease in the money supply. Shift either the money supply or the money demand, and tell me what's going to happen to the nominal rate, and tell me what's going to happen to the quantity of money as well. And when you are done with that, you can go ahead and do your summary. So in a paragraph, describe what you have learned today. And I will check your notes tomorrow. I'll check the summary, and I'll also check whether you did those problems. So have a good evening, and I will see you tomorrow.